How are we doing in class attendance, Emily?
We are up to 16 participants.
All right.
And we're just hitting live on YouTube.
All right. You're live, Claude.
I'm ready, brother.
Yeah, so we've just hit 4:30 and we are up to 17 people on the call.
All right, good. Well, you want to wait, what, 5 minutes, or we had more RSVP, didn't we?
Yes, we have a few more RSVPs for tonight. So I would say let's give it a couple more minutes. Let's give it 2 more minutes and see. I know we have a lot to do tonight. We're very excited.
All right, well, we're not worried
session.
about time. We'll just break out the beer.
Jorge, I'm still waiting for Dr. Watkins to sign on as well.
All right, well, let me know when he does, and then
We'll do, and we're up to 18 folks at the moment.
all right. Dr. Watkins, Gina, nice to see you.
Hello, nice to see you as well.
I'm Jorge Anchondo. I'm the moderator, the humble
Very nice
moderator.
to meet you. Very nice to meet you, Jorge.
Yeah. Gina, do you know Claude Teal?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
I want to make sure that everybody's acquainted here.
I do know Clotilde.
All right.
Hi, Gina.
Hi, Clotilde. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good.
And Jorge, it looks like we've stalled out at about 18 people on the call at 33 past, and still waiting for Dr. Watkins to sign on.
All right. Dr. Craig Watkins is our new executive director for the IC Squared Institute. Incoming, I should say, in January.
Incoming.
Right? Yeah.
All right, Jorge, we're up to 21 on the call tonight.
All right, good. We're almost there.
Almost there.
We have a class of 28, and a few are going to be out on business, which is always good to hear.
Mhm. And I don't think I don't know if Dr. Watkins will be able to join us. I sent him a reminder just a second ago, and if not, I'm sure that Dr. Pogue would be happy to step in as well.
Yeah, I just sent him a text myself.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay,
But I'm
well,
sure-
if he does join us, then we'll fit him in after the appropriate segment. if
Okay,
That's okay.
that's fine.
All right.
And we're up to 22. And I think we could go ahead and get started if you'd like, Jorge, with it
Yeah,
being 46
okay,
past.
and with the caveat that we always have to make room for the boss. I'll start session 6, which is successful contracting and contractors. And it's going to feature 2 prominent contractors whom I will introduce shortly. And then our expert panel, which we're bringing back special presenters that we've had previously. So very thankful and appreciative of their participation. I also want to thank our sponsor, Travis County, and our co-host and our host and co-sponsor, IC Squared Institute. And we're hopeful that this partnership with Travis County and the IC Squared will convert into a consortium of other sponsors the next go around. I also want to give our last 2021 shout out to our live stream audience, and also want our participants to check off funnel 1 after this session, and Dr. Poe is going to give a preview of funnel 2 before you graduate. And of course, after you graduate, Emily has a special announcement, possibly reminder about your capability statement and an evaluation survey that we're going to conduct. And Emily, just roll it to the review of the last session. And you can check off funnel 1 now, and we're going to go into funnel 2 in 2022. Very thankful for Richard Amato, and of course the ubiquitous Mrs. Cheryl Brown in this program for all the contributions that they've made, especially for introducing our class participants to value propositions, capability statements, elevator pitches. And finally, I want to recognize our program staff, and as your humble moderator, I want to tell the program staff, John, Jim, Evan, and of course, Emily, it's been a pleasure, true pleasure to work with you. So thank you for all your efforts. At this time, I was going to introduce Dr. Butler for our special introduction for Dr. Watkins. Has he appeared yet?
Yes, he is. He's on the call.
Okay, so Dr. Butler, your special presentation. Introduction.
Hello, everyone. John Butler here, Professor McComb School of Business, and it's indeed a pleasure to introduce S. Craig Watkins, who is the incoming Executive Director of our beloved IC Square Institute. And right now he holds the Ernest A. Sharp Centennial Professor at the University of Texas at Austin. And more importantly, he's the founding director of the Institute for Media Innovation. At this time, MIT is trying to take it away from us. I know that interesting MIT. He's at MIT now as a MLK visiting professor. His research focus on media, database system, human behavior, racial issues, and how all of that relate to how economies work and what we do in terms of the sciences there. He is the author of 6 books and several articles, which look at technology, race, society. He's a great scholar. His work has been supported by the MacArthur Foundation, so he knows how to raise money. He is one of us. He went to undergraduate school here at the University of Texas, and then he got his PhD from the University of Michigan. And his wife really was one of the first people who worked also in the Austin Technology Incubator. So Craig has been associated with the Institute, and I would like to say welcome, Craig. With Greg Pogue and the rest of the Institute folks, we're looking for you to take the Institute to the next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Butler, for that very generous introduction. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I should, there's one thing that I should correct that Dr. Butler said, and MIT is not trying to steal me away. I'm here for a year, and then I'm coming back to Austin. And partly my apologies for just getting meetings and time zones confused for being late here, but really excited to be here. So proud of the legacy of IC Squared and its leadership. Initially with Greg Kosmeski and others, and Dr. Butler, of course, being a central figure in the IC Squared story, and then here more recently, the work that Mark Markman and Greg Pogue and Bruce Kellison and others have been doing is really important work, and the work that you're celebrating tonight, I think, is an expression of that legacy. The readiness training program for hubs, historically underutilized businesses, is something that is, I think, critically important to those of us at IC Squared. I sort of envision, IC Squared under my leadership as really being attentive to the kinds of communities, the kinds of issues that this program addresses, and the need to think about, the future of innovation, the future of economic development, in part through the lens of inclusivity and empowering those who historically have lacked access to the resources and opportunities to realize their full potential. So excited that we're having this event tonight. Excited about this work. Proud that IC Squared has made this a focal point of some of his activities, and looking forward to learning more about the work that you've been doing here and the work that we anticipate doing in the future. So I just wanted to make some introductory remarks and say hello, and to say how proud and how happy I am, that this project is a part of the larger portfolio of the activities at IC Squared. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Watkins, and thank you for those great words and the future direction of the IC Squared. Of course, I'm personally committed, as our next speaker is, to hubs. Our next 2 speakers, Gina and Claude Teal, and I'll start by introducing Claude Teal and let her make some comments, and then have Gina, I'll introduce her. Claude Teal Haynes is principal and CEO of Haynes-Eaglin-Waters, or HEW LLC, a general construction management and consulting firm established in Austin in 1988. Serving as a subcontractor, her firm has notable construction projects in the Austin area, and they include the new Central Library, Austin FC Soccer Stadium, the Bergstrom Airport expansion, and at UT, her work has included Dell Medical School, Memorial Stadium improvements, the Durham Residence Hall, AT&T Conference Center, and the MLK Statue Courtyard. The company also provides consulting services aimed at maximizing the participation of minority and women-owned businesses in construction and construction-related projects. Notable clients include Tulsa, Travis County, Gigafactory, Circuit of the Americas Formula One facility, and the $500 million mobility bond corridors program of the city of Austin. Prior to launching HEW, Ms. Haynes served as division manager for the city of Austin, Department of Housing and Community Services. Among her other professional experience, she has served as a special assistant to Donna Shalala, who was the secretary of the Housing and Urban Development Department. Ms. Haynes has a bachelor's degree from UT and a master's degree from the LBJ School of Public Affairs. She's the president of Precursors, Inc., a UT alumni organization whose members are African-American students who entered the University of Texas at a minimum of 40 years ago. Ms. Haynes, thank you for wanting to share your professional history and experiences with us.
Thank you, Jorge. And again, it's so good to be back with you, my brother. We did some exciting things back earlier in the 90s and 2000s. So it's great to be here, and thank you for inviting me. I'm not quite sure if this is just introductory, Jorge, or if you want me to talk a bit about the history of forming the company at this time. So let me get that direction from you.
Yeah, please tell us about what your history's been. You know, what made you a successful hub, or MWB, as they say in the city of Austin, and any other anecdotal types of things that you want to tell us. You know,
Excellent.
You're speaking to our class, and you know they're interested in finding out what the ropes are.
Terrific. Gotcha. Okay. So, so 1988. If for those of you that are perhaps too young to know this, let me tell you something. In 1988, the whole country, and certainly Texas, was in the midst of a horrible recession. You wouldn't know it now to look at what's happening in Austin and all of the activity, but things were bad in 1988. And many people, my husband among them, said, why the heck are you walking away from a good government job to start a business? Pretty risky situation. And I only had one answer for that. And my answer was, well, it feels right. It feels like it's the right time, which not necessarily the best thing to go on when you're starting a business, but I really seriously felt, if not now, when? If I don't go now, will I ever go? So I took the plunge, and I have to tell you, it was a plunge. It took a while to get going. But I did have a couple of things going for me. One, and you'll hear Hope and Hay maybe talk about this at some point, but you know, it's very difficult to start a business without some other income stream. So I want to say that it was definitely beneficial that my husband was working and had income. I now know how important that was. At the time, I didn't give it much consideration, but had his income coming in, so I felt a little comfortable in pursuing my dreams. But what I found out is that it takes a while. And I knew a lot of folks because I worked at the city, but even with that, I was moving into an area that I'd not been in before, which was construction. So what I learned that for a woman and a woman of color to go into the construction industry in Austin, Texas in 1988, weren't very many other folks that looked like me at all. And every business is built on relationships. I think everybody probably knows that. But I'm only talking about my experience in the whole relationship challenge in an industry absolutely dominated and still is by white men. It was tough. It was very, very difficult to break into that area. But what I learned is that with good planning and staying at it and having people that could, in fact, do the work, that the dealing with that challenges. So now how do you get people to pay attention to you, or how do you get people to give you that first chance? That's difficult. So I want to give a shout out to, again, my very dear friend on this panel, Hopeton Hay, who was part of an effort at the University of Texas to begin a mentor protege program. And that was in the early 2000s. Through that program, I was able to really hone some terrific relationships with a company that went on to be my mentor. I'll actually name that company, Hensel Phelps Construction. They are a top 10 construction program and have been for quite some time company in the United States. They've done a lot of work all over this state and many other states. So through that mentor protege program, not only was I able to build a career-lasting relationship with one of the very best construction companies, most prominent in the country, but the other services that came along with being in the mentor protege program propelled me from being just another construction company out here to one that was prepared and ready to actually go get the work, pursue the work, and then to perform the work. Things like facilitating a bonding relationship. I'm not going to get way into construction, Jorge, because I know that that's not what this is about. But I do want to say that if you're going into the construction industry, Gina knows this, you're going into the construction industry, you need to have a bonding relationship with a bonding agent. You're going to have to bond your work. I didn't even know what bonding was. I didn't know how to get it. I just knew I didn't have it. But through that mentor protege program, the University of Texas, I learned a lot. And interestingly, the bonding agent that I was introduced to by Hopeton Hay on this panel right now, all those years ago, is still my bonding agent. And we're still doing good things together. So I would say that in these brief comments here, that I would attribute the success that we've enjoyed to being lucky enough to be the very first protege ever selected by the University of Texas system in the state of Texas, and paired with the very first mentor ever selected by the University of Texas system, Hensel Phelps. That, along with the ancillary services that went with being at that program, really did make a difference for me. Last thing I would say is that just getting that one relationship obviously doesn't make you a success. It didn't make us a success, but here's what it did. All of those companies who previously we would bid to and never hear from again would throw our bids away, or we follow up with phone calls and got nowhere. That all of those business that said no before we had the opportunity to grow with our mentor, funny, they began to say yes. And I think they began to say yes because they could see that, oh, Hensel Phelps is using them. They must be okay. So to me, nobody's confirmed this, but I know what life was like before that relationship, and I know what life has been like since then. And it is this: when a successful major company in this business gives you a chance, you have to perform. You have to perform. And once others think that you are capable of doing the business because they're using her, she must be okay, then others eventually will give you an opportunity. But again, you must continue to perform. You must continue to perform. I said that would be the last thing, but I do have one more thing. For those of you, for the entrepreneurs in this audience, don't do it the way I did it when I started, because everybody, all the experts on this panel will tell you, Do not start your business with credit cards. Well, that's what I did. I started my business with credit cards because I had good credit, but no real money, no real liquid resources that I could put into the business. So I did it the way I knew how to do it at the time. But I would say, guys, as you launch or grow your businesses, develop financial relationships with commercial banks, non-commercial lenders, whomever you can, and avoid the credit card thing. It is not the way to go. We were able to do it at a time when things are a little bit different, but I would not recommend that today. And with that, I think I'll pause.
Well, Teal, thank you so much. Now, you kept it short and sweet, maybe too short and sweet. And what I'm going to ask you is to stick around after Gina has finished, and maybe our class participants will have a few questions for you, because both of you represent the cream of the cream here in this area. So I want them to take advantage of your presence here today.
Absolutely.
Let me go into Gina. Regina Estevez is president of COE Concepts. Mrs. Estevez is a native Texan and was born and raised in the small town of Kennedy, Texas, which is located 65 miles south of San Antonio. She began her career working for state government in 1985. She worked for various state agencies, and most of her work experience was in human resources management, where she acquired certification as a professional in human resources in 1996. She was the director of human resources for the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. She worked for 20 years. She retired in July 2017 after 32 years of state service. In February of 2018, she formed her new business, COE Concepts. She wanted her business brand to be associated with being a women-owned business by naming her company with her daughter's initials, Catarina Olivia Estevez, thus COE Concepts. The company is Hub and MWE certified. COE Concept offers construction services to general contractors. The company works on traffic control, concrete, water field barriers, walkways, and fence panels. Mrs. Estevez, thank you for wanting to share your professional history and experiences with us.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on this panel. I appreciate it. As you read my bio, COE Concepts was formed in February 2018. When I retired from the state, I was not sure exactly what I was going to do next in my career. And I certainly didn't think I'd be running the business, but here I am. So I've learned a lot. As far as COE, I can say that some of the first things as a business that I did was to get certified as a hub and MWBE. So that way we would have that status as far as when going out to look for jobs. I guess as far as, I did not have any experience in construction other than my husband does have a construction background, and he's definitely been my mentor. He's got a wealth of knowledge, and I've been able to, pick his brain all the time pretty much. But I would have to say, for those out there that are here to listen to find out some of the things that, I think like Teal mentioned, you don't want to start off, you want to be sure you have some kind of money that you can use to get your business started, because you've got to have money to start your jobs, because you've got to pay your people. You've got, there's going to be expenses to buy all the products that you need to perform the jobs. And I was fortunate that I was able to take out some of my retirement money to actually have, to start the business. So that was a big help for me. So I had that. One of the other things I would say is, be sure you find, one of the things that I think that's been really helpful is that I've been able to find, actually from the recommendation of Hopeton. Hey, thank you, Hopeton. I have a lot of kudos for Hopeton to say, because he paired us up with somebody at the bank that we have now, and I was able to have that contact person that I could call directly and say, hey, I need this, or I had questions, or hey, can you help us with this? And he was that person, he's gone now, but he was there every time I had questions and needed help, so you want to find, that bank that you're going to have that relationship with, that, you can walk in and say, hey, and they know you by name, they know you when so that helps. I would say that helps a lot as well. And also, as I didn't know anything about QuickBooks, but I took a class, I learned just the basics. And of course, you've got to keep using it to learn all the ins and outs of it, which there's probably a lot of stuff I still don't know, but I do have a person that keeps our books, and she's amazing. And that's the other thing. You want to have somebody who understands QuickBooks, who you can call and say, hey, I need this, I need that. And, they're asking for this report, and I can pull them, but you know what? She's a knowledge expert. That's not my forte, but that person needs to be able to, stay on top of it. They know what's coming in. You've got that communication, and you've got some controls in place as well. So that's very helpful to have somebody that that's going to be able to be there for you when you need them, and knows exactly what's going on with your QuickBooks. And you as well, you've got to stay on top of that. What's coming in, what's coming out, money in, money out. Because as you know, that's a daily thing. I would say, as you mentioned, I'm going to also, Clotilde, she said she was one of the first people that was part of the mentor protege program. And I'm currently in that program right now. And I can tell you that it has been a huge help for my company. I mean, we've been very fortunate that we've been paired up with one of the larger contractors here in Austin, and we've been able to do work through them. We've gotten contracts with them. We're currently working on the UT Red River Alignment Project. We've been on that project for over a year now, and we've acquired additional work with this contractor, and it's been very helpful. We meet actually like every quarter, and we pick out different subjects that we want to talk about, so we can talk to them about what are their best practices, and they can help us. I mean, it's been a very good relationship with them. And we've actually extended our program with them, as far as a mentor protege program, ended this year in June, and we've continued it for another year, so it'll end next year in June. And I would say that if you are able to find that opportunity to be part of this program through UT Systems, it's definitely one of those things that is beneficial to your company, your business. It's been a huge help for us, and I think some of the successes we've had have been because of that program. As far as COE, when the company was created, we wanted to be able to provide our contractors with a one-stop shop for certain products, and that's why we decided that we can capture somebody's site by doing water barriers, fencing, pedestrian walkways, and traffic control to keep, those surroundings for that project that's going to go up, and keep those pedestrians and people outside of the area safe, and, that it's there for protection as well. So somebody can come to us and say, instead of having to go to 4 or 5 different vendors, they can come to COE and they can get all of that done, at one time. They don't have to be out looking for different vendors to do certain things for them. So those are the commodities we offer in a nutshell. Let me see, what else can I touch on? I have a few little notes here. I'm probably not going to. Anyway, I would say, me being in the housing background, that's and HR as well. I mean, I've watched Austin grow, and so I kind of have I've got seen, as part of the housing and then part of HR, that's been able to help me in my role as president for COE Concepts. Like I said, there's still a lot. I learned something daily. I'd say the other thing, and I'm going to touch on what Clotilde said, you got to build those relationships. You have to be able to, they have to know your business people, that the business you're going for people, you got to be able to know that they can trust you, and in return, you want to be able to trust them. as well. And so relationship building is very important as well. You want to be able, I mean, in my business, I hardly venture outside of those certain contractors that we do work for, just because those relationships have already been established and there's a foundation there. So, they know that they can trust us and they know what our work product is like, and we're efficient and effective, as well as us being able to know, hey, we're going to get paid when they say we're going to get paid. Because that's a big thing too, is that you got your money going out, but you got to be able to have your money coming in so that you can pay for your, all the products that you bought to do that job, and then pay your workers. And so there's so much that goes into, being able to afford to be able to do those jobs as well. And you want to make sure that you're getting a profit from those jobs that you're doing as well. So that's very important too. And I would say, as well as what Coach Teal mentioned, if you go to a construction gathering, the majority there at those meetings and those gatherings, male dominated. I mean, you walk in and you see like maybe 4 or 5 other females. And so you're kind of like, okay, well, how are you? Nobody really walks up to you. And then when they say, you own the business. Oh yeah. Oh, okay. And so you start talking. I mean, if you go to networking events, and of course, I know COVID that's kind of put a little damper, but I mean, things are opening up now, but you've got to be out there and you've got to put yourself out there. They've got to see your face. You've got to talk to people. So that's a big thing, is developing those, getting to know other people, getting to meet them and talk to them up front and face to face. And this is who I am. This is what we do. This is what we provide. These are the services we have. Talk to somebody else that we've done work for. They can give you a great, reference for us. So some of those things are essential too. And just, putting yourself out there. And like I said, it's definitely a male dominated, workforce for construction. So it is definitely trying to get your way in. But once I think people get to know you and they know what your business does and that you're reliable and you have a product that, is something that they can use and that's reliable, as well as, trusted, those are huge things to have for your business. So that's probably not 15 minutes, but I think that's, if anybody has questions at the end, I'm here to answer.
Well, thank you so much, Gina. Very insightful. Emily, has anybody popped up a question for our 2 panelists?
No, Jorge, we haven't had any questions yet in the chat, but I think I will go ahead and put up the PowerPoint, but if anybody would like to ask any questions, you're welcome to put your name in the chat, and I can call on you and you can come on and ask your question for our 2 company owners.
And let me ask this of our 2 panelists here, this one question, and you both can answer it. Any advice on balancing business time with family, personal time, when you're the CEO like yourselves, or the key employee, and often the chief person delivering the product or service? What's that like when you head up the company?
Well, I'm going to take personal privilege in answering that to say, depends on if you're a man or a woman. And what I mean is, ladies in the audience, women tend to multitask in a way that you guys wish you could, or maybe you don't, I don't know. But I will tell you that when it comes to family issues, it was a challenge for me, because when I started my company, I had babies, and they ain't no babies no more. But making sure that you are saving time for that is obviously very important. It's the most important. It's the most important thing, Jorge. And so just however you have to do that, family comes first, business comes second. I will say this. Actually, for me, I was able to manage my time with my family better when I started my business because I was the person in charge of the business. When I worked for the city of Austin, no disrespect, city of Austin, but in my role there, I had to go to lots of meetings, city council meetings, committee meetings, community meetings, whatever. And I had to do or fulfill the responsibility that came with that job. And honestly, one of the reasons I left when I did in 1988 during the middle of a depression, not depression, but recession, is I missed one too many of my kids' programs at school. And I couldn't do that anymore. So I was able to actually manage better. It was still difficult, but at least I could set the schedule of making sure I'm on that field trip, at that teacher's meeting, at that program, and so forth. How about you, Gina?
I have to agree with Teal. I mean, I'd say, there's definitely times that, it's crazy busy, but, there's also a benefit because like she said, you're your own boss. So you get to plan, like you can kind of forecast to see, okay, when's it going to be really, really busy and when's the downtime? And so, I mean, honestly, if I didn't think I was going to have, that was one of the reasons I actually retired from state government, because it was like, okay, I want to have time for myself. So I have my schedules worked out week to week, and I kind of know what's coming, what's on the forefront, what's coming. So I feel like I'm able to definitely have that work-life balance. And I think like Teal said, family first, family is always going to be first. I have a daughter who goes to Incarnate Word, and she's a softball player. So, games, I'm there. I'm not missing them. And she's played softball since she was 8. So, I'm able to do it. Luckily, I'm blessed that I'm able to do it. Very blessed that I have the time to do that work, the work-life balance, but definitely family first.
Okay, so the business ownership then provides you with substantial flexibility. It sounds like, which is a true benefit. I know Dr. Pogue had a question that he posted on the chat room. Greg, do you want to ask the question?
Sure. I was just going to ask, what are some specific strategies, memberships, groups, events that you found effective for getting your name out to prospective clients early in your experience, or maybe ones you work in now that would give you an advantage for the businesses to find new clients?
Well, so there are a number of, and again, I'm speaking construction, but it doesn't have to be, but, we do have a number of contractor associations in the industry that are good for meeting folks and for networking. There are chambers of commerce also filling that. I think those are good. But I want to go back to, at least in the industry that Gina and I are both in, that probably the best thing you can do to meet potential clients is attend events where they are. For instance, if there are pre-bid meetings, pre-bid conferences where you are learning about projects that are out there, general contractors, if that's your client base, will be there. So you need to try to be there as well. Go to where your clients are. If you're in some other business industry, find out where your potential business, where the clients that you'd like to have, where do they go? Now, sometimes you're not going to be able to get into some of those places. They require membership fees and so forth. But it's worth the investment, and you have to do your research. Where can Gina said where there's a gathering. Find out where the gathering is and see if you can, either through a membership or through attending a special event, meet the people that you want to come back around later to talk about potential business with. That's how I would answer
Yeah, I agree. There are several different contractor associations out there that you can join. I'd say, like Clotilde said, Chamber of Commerce. I recently just was part of the Regional Hispanic Contractors Association and met quite a few people at that event. So that organization's out there, and I wasn't aware of it. So that's one that, I'm aware of now. Some of the other things, like Clotilde said, you've got, I guess one of the benefits that I can say for me is that because my husband has a construction background, and has been and is very knowledgeable and has made those connections with some of the other big contractors out there, I was able to come in through that direction and be introduced and say, this is what I do. And so knowing that his company was also very successful, that was a help for me to get kind of that stepping stone right there as well. But if you know where these events are happening, like Clotilde said, there's going to be other contractors there. You're going to be able to meet them, talk to them. This is what I do, get their card, follow up with them. But the other thing too is finding out, how do you get there before other people get there to also try to get those jobs with them. So that's another strategy that you have to try to figure out as well, to be able to, to get those jobs.
Thank you. Emily, do we have any questions from our class?
Well, we have a question from Hopeton Hay, which is, will every potential customer be a good customer?
And, well, did you want to go, Gina?
I would say no. Not every potential customer will be a good customer, because I think just like anything else, there's some really great companies out there, and then there's the not so great companies out there. So, you want to be able to find those companies that, like I said, that you're going to be able to build that relationship with, that that when they say they're going to pay you, they're going to pay you, and you're not chasing the money, and that, that it's going to be one of those relationships that's a win-win. So, and I don't, I can say for me, because like I said before, I try to stay with those certain companies because those relationships have been developed, and I know that they trust COE Concepts and I trust them as far as, when we go in to try to get a bid or get work with them, that they're going to be there for us when we need them, and we're going to be there for them when they need us. So it's got to be a two-way street. You got to be able to give and get, and you got to be able to do the same, for them.
And I agree with what Gina says about this subject. No, every potential customer is not a good customer or client for you. But here's the deal. When you're starting out, you really don't know that. You don't have the relationships, then you don't know whether or not a potential customer is good for you right off the bat. So what does that mean? That means that, and I learned this because I want to tell this group that I got taken by two general contractors within a month of each other, and that had never happened to me before. Gina, you talked about the making sure you're getting paid. Well, I was naive. I thought if you do what you're supposed to do in completing your contractual obligations, that your customer will do what they're supposed to do and pay you when you do your job. And unfortunately, that knocked me off my feet when the first client did that to me. But what really then just the uppercut to my jaw was when it happened again within 30 days. It almost put me out of business. I say almost, but I mean, it was on the brink. So that experience, as bad as it was, and it was bad, taught me something. And what it taught me was, again, every customer, Hopeton, is potential customer is not a good customer. So what you have to do is do your homework and research these potential customers. Whatever your particular industry is, figure out how to learn about that company's habits, how they treat others, not only financially, but do they keep their word? And I don't know about all industries, Hopeton, but I can tell you in the construction industries, that's easy to find out. Because all you got to do is ask other subcontractors, and they will tell you. Because I would say that there is a brother sisterhood within subcontractors where this happened to me and I'd like it not to happen to anybody else. So if you happen to ask somebody, is so-and-so a good contractor? Do they pay their bills and so forth? They'll tell you. I didn't know that. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't expect it would be that I would have that experience. But again, I learned a lot from it. I don't want to repeat it ever, but I learned a lot from that. So my approach is this: whenever there's a new client, I'm pretty much like Gina. Most of my clients are regulars for me now. But when somebody new approaches me, and by the way, they approach me, I don't approach them. When they approach me, and I don't know them, I immediately start to research them. So I'm sure they want to know about me and what I can do, but I'm going to put the time and energy. I am going to put time and energy and finding out everything I can before signing a contract with a company that's new to me.
Thank you both for that great advice. If I can ask you this, we're going to have a panel of experts here that are going to go into the do's and don'ts of subcontracting. Namely, we're going to continue the question and answer type of activity that we've had here. If you, Gina, Claude, Teal, if you have an answer for a question that our participants might have, or which we might pose ourselves, then please feel free to jump in. But at this point, we're going to go on now to our expert panel. Thank you both very much, by the way. And of course, our expert panel, we've brought back for sure our stars, Cheryl Brown, Hopeton Hay, and of course, Dr. Greg Pogue. And they've had spoken previously on our sessions. We wanted to have this particular segment with the panel, a question and answer segment. They have not really prepared anything to give, although I'm sure they're ready to if we ask them. And what we need to have you do now, our class, is to ask questions, and hopefully they'll answer you as best they can. I want to remind you that they all have a broad-based business experience, and namely they can walk the talk. They've been on both sides of the fence, so they can answer from a variety of perspectives. Emily, have we had any questions from our participants?
No questions yet. I'm going to encourage everybody not to be shy. This is the time to ask any of those questions, or share any of your stories that you'd like to for feedback. And please don't hesitate to come off camera and ask a question, or put it in the chat, and I'm happy to read it out for you.
Emily, it's Andy Smetana.
Hi, Andy.
This open floor for any question?
Yeah, this is
okay. Awesome.
Go ahead, Andy. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question is about as a hub business, would you, as we market ourselves to other business partners and to our customers, would you encourage us to highlight that we're a hub, or should we not kind of lead with that type of messaging?
Well, what I would say is you want them to know your hub, but you don't want them to get the impression that you think you should get the business because you're hub. So we want to hit our hub goal. our primes want to hit their hub goal. So we are always looking for hub firms, but you don't want that potential customer to think that the primary reason they should use you is because you're hub. You should talk about your qualifications, your experiences, and all the other assets that you bring to the table. And that's really what the emphasis really needs to be. And the second thing is when you're interacting with hub coordinators or people from government agencies, potential customers, whether it's a general contractor or a hub coordinator from UT Austin or somewhere else, listen closely to the kind of questions they're asking you to answer. So one of the things I've discovered, I'm at a lot of hub outreach events at the booth, and we'll start getting the pitch from the hub firm saying, this is what we do. And I will try to gently sort of say, this is what we're looking for. So you have to be able to pivot, listen to that potential customer. So because I'm trying to give the hub an idea of what we're looking for, and your presentation needs to change based on what that specific customer is actually asking for. Because I will tell you as an example, we have 13 UT institutions or 14. They don't all do things the same way. They do not do things. So MD Anderson Cancer Center may look at something differently than UT Austin. So never assume, well, they're all UT, they're all the same, or Texas A&M and UT, we're all the same. So listen closely to that customer and be very specific when you're doing your 5-minute, elevator pitch. Be very specific to them and understand what that particular customer is looking for. So listen to what they tell you, and they should be able to give you some guidance on what they're looking for and change your presentation to meet what they're specifically talking about. And if you can't, ask them questions to help you to better understand what they're actually looking for.
I just like to, oh, going ahead, Cheryl.
I was just going to piggyback on that. That's such a great advice, Hopeton. Looking at certifications, whether they be hub or woman-owned, minority-owned, whatever those certifications may be, look at them as like the candles on the birthday cake. And when you look at a birthday cake, you have the cake, you have the filling, you have the frosting, and you have the birthday candles. The cake is like marketing. You can't have birthday cake without marketing. You can't get customers without marketing. The filling is your past performance. Because if you don't have past performance, if you can't put your money where your mouth is, you're going to choke on the cake. And then, of course, you have the frosting. And the frosting is going to turn your mouth blue. It's equivalent to your pricing. So if you have way too much frosting, it's going to just turn them off. And then again, now the candles, those are your certifications. Not all buyers, not all customers want to know how old they are. Some customers want the number candles. Some customers want the regular candles. Some want customers like, trick candles. So this is where you want to find out what is important to them. Who are you? What do you do? What have you done? And what's important to your customer?
I think the only thing I would add to this is in many business sectors, we really encourage businesses to collect customer journey statements. So in other words, ask the question, what is it like to work with me? What is the differentiated experience and value they achieve through working with me? And what is a quote that illustrates that? And you don't need one, you need several. And as you are customer focused and obsessed to hear what their needs are, you can bring that out, attach or present such that you are showing a analogous or similar situation to the customer, the person you're speaking with. So it's a way that in the words of your customers, they can see how your capability statement correlates with actually the experience of the customer. It needs to be short, it needs to be pithy, but you're new to these folks. It needs to be clear how easy it is to work with you and how it'll meet their particular needs.
I do want to add one last thing real quick. You need to understand what is the procurement process for that customer, because we don't make decisions like IBM. We have specific requirements that we have to get 3 bids if it's between $15,000 and $49,000. If it's over 50, it's got to be a public bid. If it's under 15,000, we can get a proposal, make a decision on one. So that's the other thing, is understanding for that particular customer, what are the dollar limits on how decisions are made. I've had unsolicited proposals sent to me to do something for $40,000. We can't do that. I mean, we don't operate that way. And so just understand what is, ask us, ask UT System, ask UT Austin, well, how do you guys make decisions? We'll say up to 15. We can make it internally, 15 to 50. It's going to be 3 formal proposals, and over 50, we're going to go to a public bid. So just make sure you're asking that customer, especially when it comes to the government space, because there's a lot of standardization in the government space on how they make decisions.
Great. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. Claude, Teal, do you have anything to add to what Andy asked? Does it help you? And I'm curious about the private sector, because you've done a lot of private sector work.
Right. And that's a good distinguishing point, Jorge. First, let me touch on public sector just for a moment. So public sector. The thing about the identifying yourself as a hub is that in the public sector, for those entities that are encouraging hub participation, let's be clear. The client, your particular client, be it the public entity itself or a contractor or company that is the prime who's looking to bring aboard hub subs in some way. If it's construction subcontractors, if it's other kind of sub businesses, they're looking for hubs. So I do think that being clear that you are a hub is important on some circumstances. And I want to say something about that. You could be terrific at what you do, terrific. But given the opportunity to hire Gina, who is a certified hub firm, she's great at what she does, or Claude, making this up because I am certified, but not certified as a hub firm, they're going to go with Gina. So there are circumstances where it is important that you not only identify yourself as a hub, but yeah, you want to market your hubness. That's my opinion. Now, with respect to the private sector, and I have done, Jorge, a number of private sector projects, I am so happy to say that today there are private sector clients that we've dealt with that have diversity programs. And so they have come along on this particular issue over the years. And so although they're not mandated by some council or state of Texas edict that you shall have diversity programs, they do it anyway in their corporate policy. So even in the private sector, because so many of them have these diversity programs, I think that in an appropriate setting, of course, you identify yourself as a hub, minority, or woman-owned business. But as I think Hopeton has said there, is that just because you are doesn't get you the work. But if you perform and there's an added feature that you are a hub certified firm, I think it helps.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Gina, did you want to say anything?
I would say, like Clotilde said, having the hub certification is great, but being a hub, you still have to perform regardless whether you're a hub or not. I mean, we've done, I'd say probably 60% of the work that we do is probably public sector, 40% private. But I mean, I think that's a plus for some of those contractors out there. I mean, if they're looking at their hub numbers and they're like, oh, wow, we need somebody that's got hub, that's a hub, they're going to look to you to say, they've done work for me before. They've done a great job. Yes, let's use them again. So that helps. But, at the same time, you know, like I said, you've got to be able to perform. Just because you're a hub, that doesn't mean like, oh, I'm a hub, they're going to select me because I'm a hub and they, you know, that's what they need. They also need to know that you're going to be able to perform and you're going to be able to do the job for them. So that's the other thing.
And I'd like to add to that because I have seen hub firms that, you know, are, you know, more than disappointed if they don't get a job. They think being a hub is all it takes. I'm a hub and therefore you should hire me. It's not, no.
Agree.
It doesn't work that way. And I've seen some firms who just, they're like mad about it. They think that they're being mistreated because, you know what, I'm a hub. So no, the hub is added value. But as Gina said, you got to know what you're doing and perform. That's it. You happen to be a hub, great.
Well, thank you. Let me ask a question here. What are the biggest, most common mistakes small businesses make, and how can the companies avoid them or reduce their negative impacts? Can I start with our guest from California, Michelle Brown?
Oh, the one mistake I think a lot of small businesses make, and this isn't even actually just small businesses, businesses in general, is that that they bid before they're ready. Or they bid not knowing what they're getting into. I often will joke around. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to a business is you bid on a project and win. You don't fully understand what you're going to be required to do. You're not really ready financially or infrastructure wise to perform on the contract. So it's exciting to look at $1 million contract and be like, think about, oh my gosh, that's life changing. That would mean so much to me. But if you don't have the infrastructure in place to support that $1 million contract, no matter how great it looks, stay away, start smaller. So bidding before you're ready and bidding when you don't fully understand what's going to be required. There's a number of resources out there, and a lot of these proposals that are out there are written in a way that can be confusing. And so ask the questions, understand really what's going to be required before you invest too much of your precious time putting together a beautiful proposal only to find out that you don't qualify, or that if you do win, now you're going to have to front load $500,000, all of those things. So I think number one is bidding, whether it's private or public sector, before you're ready for that particular opportunity.
Thank you. Greg, do you have something to add there?
Yeah, one of the ways I would kind of frame an issue is RFP, request for proposal obsession. In other words, being obsessed with a proposal, but not building actually a sales funnel. And that you are only focused on getting the deal. But if you get it or don't, which, let's be blunt, you often do not get it, you have no backup funnel for future applications to keep your revenue stream working. So in these large contracting relationships, I'm always encouraging small businesses to spend almost equal time building out a funnel of opportunities that temporally hit over time. So they always are applying for opportunities that when they hit, and as Cheryl says, you have now reached a capacity, you can de-emphasize the pipeline and focus on the execution. But until you get the deal, you need to have a pipeline to fill your revenue stream.
Thank you. Hopeton.
A couple of things. One, you don't want to grow too fast. I've seen a fair amount of failure. And when I say grow too fast, especially if you're in a business where you invest the money, you pay your in the construction industry, you're paying your workers almost every Friday. Your suppliers want to be paid in 30 days, and it takes you 45 days to get that first check. 45 days from the time you submit the invoice to get that first check. So you're having to carry that project for 90 days out of your pocket. And so getting more business does not fix your cash flow problems. If anything, if you grow too fast, you're actually putting yourself in a position to fail. So that's one thing. And when I share this, it's literally having seen this happen. The other thing is having too much business with one customer. I have seen 2 or 3 hub firms, 3 hub firms, to go out of business, file bankruptcy because of the concentration of revenue where one customer represented 80, 70, 80, 90% of their revenue. And they got sideways in with the customer, things didn't work out, literally it bankrupted them. And I saw another one almost bankrupted because 70 or 80% of their revenue was coming from one customer. Now, I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, but we're talking, you're doing 15 million a year in business, of which 12 million is coming from one firm. So we literally saw that happen. So I'm not talking about if you got $50,000 of business and 40,000 from one firm. My famous words to a hub firm is, at a startup stage once was, whatever money you borrow to start the business, make sure it's money you can pay back if the business fails. So if the business fails, but you can still make that note when you go out and get another job, or you get an extra job cleaning offices that night or whatever it is, then hey, that's fine. But if the money you borrow is so much that if the business fails, and I'm talking about during the startup stage, if the business fails, that you literally could not, you're going to have to file bankruptcy, that my conservative opinion is, then don't borrow the money. That's too much money if you couldn't pay it back if the business fails.
And Hopeton, to add to that, if your revenues, if more than 70, 80% of your revenues is coming from one customer, that could also impact your ability to get other certifications that could help you. And so kind of keep that in mind. Not all certifications do have that restriction, but some do.
Okay, well, thank you for those caveats. Emily, do we have any
We do,
questions?
Jorge. We have a question from Kathy. How do you get your foot in the door when you are new and you don't have past performance?
Let me start with Greg.
So one of the key things you've had a chance to work on is your value proposition. And a lot of times that's maybe viewed much more of a private sector driven aspect and maybe less for hub businesses. But in my experience, your ability to state really clearly why you offer a differentiated yet relevant opportunity in a succinct manner is one of the quickest ways for you to gather interest. The more you're talking and the less you're listening, I find that you really run the risk of losing those kind of interactions. You need to be listening to customers and making sure you are interacting with them effectively and being responsive. But you need to have an attractive, clear message that allows you to open the door to start that dialogue. And that dialogue needs to be customer focused rather than you focused.
Thank you. Hopeton.
And just keep in mind, all my advice is really construction driven, whether it's doing business with a prime contractor, architect, or doing business with us. So we've heard that question many times. So a couple of things. One is start off small. So firms often will give you an opportunity if there isn't a lot of financial risk there. So you may not be able to go to the firm, to a Bond Construction, and say, I want the $1 million contract. But you may be able to go to them and take advantage of a $10,000 opportunity or $15,000 opportunity because the risk is in there, and sort of incrementally grow your expertise and experience. So that's one way. The second thing that everyone will look at is if your firm doesn't have the experience, but either you or your key staff actually does have the experience, meaning your firm has not worked on a $100,000 contract before in construction, but in your previous job, you actually were a superintendent on projects where you ran $100,000 projects or $1 million projects. So leveraging your past experience or the past experience of your key staff, I think is a way to get your foot in the door.
Cheryl.
I want to agree with the other panelists. And just to add one component is be consistent. If you do not have past performance, it's going to take a little time. but don't give up. You've got to keep on getting your name in front of them, letting them know that you exist, that you're not another fly-by-night small business that's just going to call once and give up. Showcase what you do have. Work on developing some past performance in the private sector. You have to start somewhere. And my first contract was literally to teach one 1-hour class for $150. And I thought I had hit the lottery. It takes some time, showcase what you have. It is what it is, but don't give up. Be persistent and consistent.
Let me add one thing real quick. You have to also financially be able to be there in the long haul. What I've seen a lot of people fail is because they had financial projections that I'm going to start making X amount of dollars in 3 months and I'll be able to pay all my bills. And then usually, invariably, it takes so much longer for you to build sales to the point where you can actually take enough money out of the business to survive. So you have to be financially prepared, whether it's you have a spouse, whether you paid off your bills, whether you cut your expenses, but you have to be financially prepared to be there for the long haul, because typically it's going to take 2 or 3 times longer than you thought it would take.
Okay, thank you. Emily, do we have any more questions?
We do. We have two more in the chat. One is a general question, which is, what is the best piece of advice you have received? And the other is a bit more of a specific question. So I'm going to actually reverse these two and end with the more general question of best advice. And I want to skip to Nikki. Nikki, did you want to ask the question, or shall I ask it for you? Because I think you're in the car.
Yeah, sure, I could ask it. So what I'm going through right now is I already have contracts going on, and rate increases from my vendor are killing me. Early in the year was metal, and now I just got a copper one that's doubling what I have budgeted. So how are you handling this? Because my general contractors are not accepting change orders.
Okay.
Because I already have the ongoing contract.
Cheryl, start off.
Okay, so depending on who the end customer is, the prime customer, there is legislation in place to protect situations that are out of your control. Given the current economy and the issues with supply chain, those things are out of your control. So that I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to your primes kicking and screaming, but maybe gently reminding them, especially if the end user is a government agency, that if the adjustment in pricing is justified and is out of your control, then it must be approved per the legislation. And so I would say that if you are dealing with prime contractors, they're just trying to bully you a little bit. And I'm not saying they're bad or being like that, but I would say, you get more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And if the end user is a government agency, there is legislation in place that completely that says that you can request a change order. And if it's justified because of no fault of your own, then it must be approved. And those change orders usually have to go not only to the prime, but then they have to be submitted to the agency. And what I'm probably thinking is that your prime doesn't want to submit the change order to the agency. That kind of might be what's going on. I'm just calling it how it is. I'll see if I can find that legislation for you. But if the end user is a government agency, then you are protected legislatively with that.
Upton.
I think you have to talk directly to the end user because everything, whether you're in different states, there may be different requirements. We're all working under different rules. So you really need to talk to the end user to find out what their specific policy is on that issue, because we've seen that issue before. And I'll have to confess.
I'm sorry, end user like the owner or the general contractor?
Thank you, project owner. So the project owner, so if you, Jorge, if you email me, I'll find out what our official policy is on that at the University of Texas system. So what I think you have to do is you have to find out what is the official policy governing that particular entity, because the policy may be different depending on what state you're in, whether it's the city of Austin versus University of Texas System versus Texas Facilities Commission. Even though statewide, as state agencies, we're probably all going to be under a similar policy, but we'll investigate that. I'll get an answer for you.
Thank
No,
you.
Hope,
Thank
and
you for-
unfortunately, a lot of the prime contractors won't permit, they actually restrict the subcontractors from going directly to the end user, if you will. Any thoughts on that?
Well, let me interrupt you. When it comes to the state, they can't stop them coming directly to hub coordinators. So if it's a state agency, I talk to hub subcontractors all the time. They call us, I won't say all the time, exaggerate, but you know what I mean. So if it's a state agency, we talk to subcontractors. We help them to deal with issues with prime contractors, because the hub subcontracting plan is part of their contract. And what we tell our general contractors is you cannot make a change to the hub subcontracting plan, i.e., we're going to get rid of this sub without our permission. And I have literally been in a meeting with a general contractor with an owner of a major GC who literally is, I'm being told that they dropped this hub on a project. And I'm literally at that point telling the GC, you can't do that. And it changes. So I'm only going to speak for UT System and specifically what we manage. We're going to intervene and we're going to have that conversation. So, Texas Facilities Commission is great. Yolanda Stride is great. You want to make sure, and here's something else. You want to make sure that whatever agency you're doing work with, that they have hub coordinators who can help you to be successful, meaning that they're able to intervene. They can talk to general contractors. They can talk to the construction people, because that can be the difference sometimes. And I know what it's like to be in business between success and failure, because some primes do not have the same level of sensitivity to the cash flow needs of subs. And at times they have some just don't care in general. I mean, most GCs, they're going to try to do their best. But so I have seen the story. I have seen people almost bankrupted by primes. So go to your hub coordinator. If it's a city, go to the city person. Because frankly, I mean, if it's going to cause you financial distress, do what you have to do to survive.
Thank you for that advice. Now we're almost out of time here. I want to make this request of our panelists. If in fact we have more questions, if you don't mind us sending you the questions and providing answers, we would really appreciate that. But again, we appreciate your taking time out to answer questions and to participate in the RTP for hubs. And of course, I mentioned earlier that we were going to preview our Funnel 2 program, and for that, I'm going to recognize Dr. Greg Pogue.
Fantastic. Well, we really appreciate everyone's engagement in Funnel 1, really focusing your attention on listening to experts, listening to the process, getting yourself ready as a hub certified business, and starting this process of engagement. What we'd like to do in Funnel 2 is we're going to be selecting some key topics that really come from your feedback in the sessions that we just completed, and even feedback in the evaluation process that will be coming, that will help us really focus on you as a business first and a hub second. So this means that the business topics will be equally applicable if you're looking at private sector oriented business engagement or public sector oriented business engagement. And we want to make sure that we're helping you think about your business as a business and strengthen this process. The Funnel 2 comes from two programs that we have run, and they are really merged into very similar content, just under two names. One is we managed in Travis County for 2 years called Fast Forward with the city of Austin. And then through Truist Cares, we were able to take this program into a online form that we also provided in the Midland, Odessa area, renaming it Small Business Accelerate. So we developed some expertise. These companies who've participated have seen very good success in their ability to procure clients, grow revenue, and eventually grow the size of their company and their impact in the region. So examples of different topics will be around marketing and sales strategies, this idea of creating your sales funnel and really being able to build out a sales approach, managing projects. I think you heard how that was linked together. When you get the big deal, how do you manage this? And you heard in some of the questions, how do I manage the cost side as well as the delivery side? Looking at key financial metrics to see how your company is doing, so you can be, again, to benchmark this year against last year, this year against next year. Looking specifically at private sector opportunities, now they may differ from public sector opportunities, and then how to engage in various forms of presentations and pitching, from what you do in emails, what you do verbally, what you do through PowerPoint. And then specific ways to be effective in communicating to buyers. And we'll be able to link together with best practices from other companies. So these were the examples of projects that we would, as we designed this program, we thought were best fitted. We asked for your feedback and your suggestions so that we really tailor funnel to really toward the needs of this cohort. But you can see that we really want to complement the content of this funnel one with new types of training. This will be launched in late spring in 2022. This gives us time to build out all the materials, bring everyone involved, make sure we get the word out and get this process launched. And Jorge and Jim Jarrett will be providing more information through Emily as the program gets put onto a calendar.
Thank you, Greg, for that preview, our funnel 2. And of course, I want to tell our class that Greg was the one that suggested to us this whole process of funnel 1 and funnel 2. We're indebted to you for that, Greg. Thank you very much and your participation. Lastly, we're coming into the graduation. I want to reintroduce Dr. Butler by saying this. John Sibley Butler holds the J. Marion West Chair for Constructive Capitalism in the Graduate School of Business in the Department of Management. He is a professor in the Management Department and holds a joint appointment in organizational behavior in the College of Liberal Arts, where he holds the Darrell K. Royal Regents Professorship in Ethics and American Society, Sociology. Undoubtedly, he has attended many graduation exercises, and this is his most recent. Dr. Butler, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Let me just say to our team, to Jorge and James and myself and Emily, it's been a pleasure to work through the RC Square Institute. You know, this is a project that we could bring to any unit at the University of Texas, and with the Bureau of Business Research, which is the oldest unit at the University of Texas. That is, it is the oldest research unit. It has been a pleasure working with everyone and working with the county, and of course, more importantly, working with our colleagues. So at this time, I want to congratulate everyone on completing the program and graduating from the program. I was saying earlier to my colleagues, maybe everybody should now go join the University of Texas Exes, even if you went to Texas A&M or Baylor or wherever have you. But it's certainly been a pleasure. The RC Square Institute has been doing this for years. So on behalf of the RC Square Institute, Past Director Art Markman, incoming Director Dr. Craig Watkins, and and Greg Pogue, we say that we will continue to enhance the state of Texas, to enhance the country about really giving certain kinds of information so that people can be successful. So, pretend that you have a hat on your head and move your tassel to the left, and congratulations. And I like to say that when you go to a program at the University of Texas, whether it's here or the ATT Center, then you become a member of the family. And you should put it on your resume so that you can say hook 'em. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Butler, for that. And Emily, last words.
We were joking that I get to follow up with the final NAG list. So just as a quick reminder before we get our final warm and fuzzy, and congratulations to all of you. Capability statements we had made due today at 4:30, but we want to extend that till 5 p.m. tomorrow. So if you did miss the boat, we tricked you, haha, final present. You can still have until 5 tomorrow should you still want to submit a capability statement. If you are confused about the assignment or you have questions about it, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'll be happy to go through that in more detail. And we will provide written feedback by the 1st of January. We will also be emailing you a post-program survey, and then we will email you again. And then we will email you again with that post-program survey. So the quicker you answer it, the fewer emails you will get. And we will be closing that the 1st of January as well. So please keep an eye out for that. That will be coming out midweek next week through SurveyMonkey. Please stay connected. We want to hear from you. We want to know how Funnel 1 went for you and how it's living out through your company. So please continue to be part of our LinkedIn. We will continue to have our website grow. We'd love to be able to feature you on the website as well. So stay connected, be in touch, and thank you to each and every one of you for your time and your energy.
Thanks again to everybody that participated here tonight and throughout the program. We are indebted to you, and good luck and stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.